Talk worthy, I promise. So, all right, welcome to 801 Labs Hackerspace, and this is a non-profit corporation. We want all your money. Send it to us. No, not really. Donations, very much appreciated. And if you want to know how to donate, just go to what? What website?
Every.org/801 Labs, I believe.
There you go. Or you could just drop off soda. Whatever you want to do. Okay. Well, all right.
Cactus cooler.
What's that? Cactus cooler. You know, I could not find cactus cooler on sale, so too bad. It's like $9 for a 12-pack.
Yeah. It's okay.
The pain is real. 3D print things.
Thank you. 3D printing, resin printing. All right. Before we get in too far. All right.
Explains so much.
It really does, doesn't it? Okay, so this is my second son, and he is an expert at 3D printing, and he got me into this. So it's his fault. I blame him for all of the expenditures. And if there's any difficult questions, I will turn them over to him. In fact, Matt, you're going to have to come up and teach us all about lychee in just a few minutes, so don't get too comfortable. All right, SLA, DLP, LCD. I don't care what you call it. It's all the same. Well, it's not the same. But, you know, on the resin bottle, it has all three, so it's good. Okay, SLA, I'll start with SLA. Went to DLP, just a light projection. And then we got to LCD, because LCD is cool.
And cheap.
And cheap. That's really the big difference. LCDs are printers, 3D printers are cheaper, right? Here. If you want me to go into more technicals, I can, but I don't really think it matters. Here. Oh, nice.
Down button.
Down button, I like it. Okay, the way an LCD projector works is you got LED lights, an LCD screen, and then you've got this bed that it sits in with a vat. And inside that vat is your resin. And so as it shines up here, the LCD blocks spots and doesn't block others, and then it hardens the UV reactive resin. Pretty simple, right? Well, okay, at the bottom of this vat is a FEP plate. Fluorinated ethylene propylene, that thing, the film.
Fluorinated ethylpropylene?
Yes, thank you. FEP plates are really finicky though, and they're not all created equal. It's just a piece of plastic, but some are better than others. And don't think that just the thicker FEP plate is better, because it's not. In fact, I prefer, would you agree with me on this one, Matt? The EPAX 3D in FEP.
Yeah.
Totally.
FEP is better.
Yeah. If you use regular FEP material, it's just plastic. You can do that if you want to, but it doesn't last very long, and your prints are likely to stick. And when your prints stick to that FEP plate, because see what's happening is you got UV, right? Shine on this on the bottom here, and it's the base plate comes down into the vat, and so it's shining right on the bottom of the base plate in the bottom of the vat, and so it's going to stick either to the base plate or to the FEP. You really don't want it sticking to the FEP, because what's going to happen is the base plate's going to lift up, and it'll come back down, lift up, back down, lift up. Okay, and so you don't want it sticking. So you want a FEP that won't stick. And InFEP costs a little bit more, but totally worth it and lasts longer. What would you say, Matt? How much longer does it last? I said maybe 2.5, 3 times longer.
Yeah, about that much.
Yeah, if you're doing lots of prints, you're going to want to change your FEP. I would say, well, once every, 30 prints of a regular FEP. 30 to 50-ish prints. Maybe less, maybe more, it depends.
I go till mine breaks.
That's what I do too. But the problem is if you go too, when you have a break, it can be a real mess. Because you can get resin all over the place. So I don't go until it breaks. I go till when it starts to get all scratched up and it looks like it's going to break. Or I start to have filled prints. Then I change my InFEP. But the InFEPs will last you much longer, and in the end, even though they're more expensive, they're cheaper. So, all right. When you do have a print failure, which you're going to have, sometimes you didn't get your supports right, or sometimes it's stuck to the FEP, or whatever, you're going to have a failure. When you do, you got to clean it up, and you've got to clean out your resin. You got to strain it, okay? Because you'll get these little particles of UV, yeah, gross stuff, and so you got to filter it and put it through a little filter. And some people say use a coffee filter. Has anybody done 3D prints and tried a coffee filter? You tried that? How'd it work? It sucks. Because it's like it drips so slow. No, it's when you need one of those like page strainer things that has like three little holes with netting at the bottom. You can buy it online. Just go to 3D resin printing filters, type that in, and get those. It's worth the money, and they're not too expensive. You can get like 50 of them for, I don't know, $5, $6. Anyways, not bad. Okay, and then let's see. The base plate. You know what? We should bring in that 3D printer. I should have brought it in.
I'll go grab it.
Go grab it. The base plate that comes down in here, okay, it sits at the bottom right here, and it comes, goes up and down and up and down, and slowly emerges, and then your print is stuck to your base plate. Hopefully. That's the goal, right? If it doesn't stick, you're screwed. So one of the things that I think is really helpful is this. It goes to the bottom of the base plate. It's a magnet, okay? And you just take the peeling off and stick it to the bottom of your base plate. And then you can put this on. And the reason why this is good is you can sand this up, get it not too rough, but sand it a little bit so it's easier to stick to. And then when you pull it off, if you've printed something really flat, you just bend it like that, and it snaps right off. It's a lot easier to pry off flat things. But do you use one of these, Matt?
No.
Okay, he doesn't. I do. How come you don't?
I just haven't. I just been too lazy. It's
Okay,
the real answer. I
fair.
haven't had problems.
Okay, so let's talk about resin. I guess this is kind of the important thing to know. It's toxic. We had a discussion about this, Matthew and I did today. The truth is, honestly, if you want to be safe about it, I don't, should this be a home hobby? I don't know. It's toxic, and who knows what chemicals, right? You're putting into your air at home, and you can worry about this as much as you want to, or you cannot worry about this as much as you want to. I don't know. There's all kinds of chemicals, and they're all toxic, right? Well, resin definitely could have its problems. There hasn't really been much research done on how bad it is. We know that if you're exposed to it, don't touch it because it's going to start to itch, and some people develop allergies to it, and it's not good. So we know it's not good for you. If you're pregnant, I definitely would not use a resin printer. Am I safe in saying that? I think.
I would just take, my biggest thing is just take precautions. I
Lots of
usually
Make sure it's exhausted.
Wear gloves.
I wear gloves, I wear goggles, and I wear a mask too.
And if you can have it exhausted out of your house, that's good, right? With a hood, with a vent. Like,
Keep it in your garage.
keep it in your garage. The problem with the garage is it's too cold. Your prints will fail.
Temperature is really important, right?
It
It
is
is.
important.
You got to maintain a steady temperature around 73, 72 degrees is what it prints best at. Okay, so
I usually print in the spring with the window open.
you do what?
I print in the spring with the window open.
There you go. I print in the basement, and I have two going at the same time. And no, I don't put it right next to the the heater furnace intake thing, vent,
Anymore.
because that would be stupid.
Anymore. Caveat. It's
Yeah.
a small one.
All right. When it comes to 3D printing, you know what's alcohol is your friend. Not for drinking. That's not smart. And while you're printing, but alcohol is very much your friend because the resin, it cleans up with alcohol.
Not just alcohol works. Acetone works great.
Yeah, but that smells.
A bunch of other chemicals. It's just alcohol is the most friendly out of.
It easiest to
those
get.
ones.
I actually.
I use alcohol.
Yeah,
It's the best.
it's the best.
I've heard acetone cleans better, or like I've heard liquid glue does a great job, but
So acetone will dissolve plastic. Wouldn't it also dissolve the resin you're using?
it won't. No.
Huh.
Is that what resin smells like?
Yep.
Can you smell it?
Yep.
Yep. It's just a.
Is it bugging you?
No.
Okay, because if it's bugging you, that's an indication you might be allergic to it. So if you can, you know, some people it bothers more than others. For me, it's like, yeah, it
Kind of
smells.
smells like electronics of some sort. a
Exactly.
little
It
bit.
just smells more.
It bothers my wife, so I have to be very careful about when I do it.
It kind of tingles my nose, but
Yeah. For some of us, we're more allergic to it than others. And like I said, there really hasn't been a whole lot of studies I've done on what its effects are and if it's really bad for us. I mean,
Yeah, it just smells like fresh water.
if you're worried about it, get an FDM printer. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, and take precautions, okay? And just know that it could spill, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. Like this, for example, this could get knocked over, this vat, or the plastic that's at the bottom of the vat could break, get a hole in it, and then you're gonna get, so what do you do, Matt, to keep your resin from never getting on the floor and in the carpet?
I do a couple of things. One of the things I do is, you know how iPads have like the little screen on the screen protectors that you get, or phones? I'll throw that down on my main screen, so if the FEP does break, then it doesn't leak into the machine itself, which is a smart idea. Or like one of those old school screen projector plastic films, slap that on, that works too.
That's to keep the resin from actually getting inside
Into the machine and ruining
machine.
it.
'Cause
That's
then-
step one, because if you get it in the machine, it goes from this is I have to replace a FET for $4 to now I have to replace a motherboard of some sort, potentially an LCD, and it becomes $100,
It's a
$150.
pain.
Or just buy a new machine.
Or buy a new machine. Yep. And then I will put under trays. I'll put like food trays underneath, so that if it does
You want me to
go
get the
over,
You want me to get
it's
the
not a
green
big deal.
food tray?
No, this is fine. I mean, you could use a tray.
Protect it so that when the end breaks, you've got an extra layer of protection.
But yeah, so like, cause I've got the machine that'll be protected now by that film that I've covered it with, and now I've also got, so now when it spills over the side of the machine, it's not gonna run everywhere, it's gonna collect in a tray.
You know what this
Oh,
dog
right.
reminds me of?
And then I
So
keep,
like a lunch tray is a
I
great
keep a
example.
tarp under
So
the
you
table.
put that on top, the printer on top of
Uh-huh.
that, so that way it doesn't. Oh,
Or
that's smart.
or a cookie sheet.
A cookie
Cookie
sheet's
sheet.
great.
Cookie
yep.
sheet.
Okay.
Yep. The nice thing about cookie sheets is you can also use them. Like I buy these at the dollar store, baking sheets, because then when I make my miniatures, they have magnets on the bottom. They stick, which is cool. Because then when I'm hauling them around to, you know, D&D campaigns wherever and we're playing, it's not as likely to fall and break. Because these things, you can buy all kinds of resin. There's ABS-like resin that's really great that doesn't break as easily. But I'm cheap and I just buy cheap stuff and it is fragile.
Ceratec Blue's the strongest
Cer-
resin you can buy.
Ceratec Blue is good stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything else I need to tell you? Alcohol. Everclear's good too. My son bought some Everclear, and because he was doing something with bugs or something. I can't-
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had like gallons of it.
Gallons.
No, seriously. He was like killing bugs and like pinning them with the
Yeah.
pins and making the little bug displays like you see at the museum.
Yeah. He's got his master's degree in entomology and marine biology. But anyway, he's that kid. But so I took his Everclear and it works great, and it doesn't have as much of a smell. But Mike wouldn't let me bring it to the hackerspace because he's afraid that Taka would drink it all.
Oh, really?
Okay, it wasn't Taka, but I won't say. I'm not ratting the person out.
Taco seems suspicious.
All right, so
Alright, if you do.
here at the Hackerspace, we have this printer here. Use it. It's crap. I printed. It works great. It works fine. It's just the original Elgu Mars. It's not 4K.
It was the first printer that they ever released that was reasonable
It
price.
probably needs a new LCD screen here
and I got
soon.
suckered into buying it and then never used it, so now you guys get to use it.
And it works. So if you want to do some prints, we got some resin in there you can use.
That case that you had, that you printed.
No, we'll do that on the FDM printer.
Okay.
So if there's a few things that you want to go find, something from Thingiverse or some cool thing from Loot Studios. By the way, Loot Studios, awesome place to go for getting STL files. we'll talk more about that later. But yeah, if you want to do that, feel free. We'll have some resin in the other room you can use. Yeah,
I have a question.
I have a rule. In my class, we don't raise our hand. We just we just say it, get it out.
So is there, like with Blender or something, a way that you could make your own figurines, stuff like that?
Answer that, Matt.
Yeah,
You don't use Blender though. What do you use, Matt?
I do use Blender.
Don't you use Fusion 360?
It depends on what you're designing, right? Because like Blender, you wouldn't want to build a house in. That would be kind of a pain a little
Like
bit.
a Kratos figurine.
I would use Blender, or I would use Blender if I'm going for the free route. If I
Turtle
want,
Forge also exists. If
Yeah,
you don't want to spend a lot of time,
Yep.
it's just a quick and easy character builder.
Yep. 100%. What's the other one that I'm thinking of?
I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of going on Discord and bugging Admiral for hours until he helps you do it.
There's also a great.
No,
thing
no,
called-
he's a really good resource, but don't make him do it.
ZBrush, that's the other one that I was thinking of. I've used ZBrush a lot. That's a really expensive one, unfortunately. But ZBrush is, I would say, it's got more tutorials than Blender does, but Blender can do all the things that ZBrush does.
If you already have a physical
know.
object that you want to make a clone of, you can look into something called photogrammetry,
Oh, I heard that. Yeah.
where you can basically do a 3D scan of it. You can do 3D scanners, but or photogrammetry.
I haven't tried that, but I
So
want to.
actually, about that, my father-in-law is an orthodontist, and he gave me one of his 3D scanners.
Oh, that's
And so I've been working to hack it, so we can get it to output STLs, and it's pretty sick.
We hate dentists, don't we, Matt?
Dentists are the worst.
They're the worst. Tell them why, Matt.
Okay, so you're gonna get a printer. You're gonna be like, why is it not working? You're gonna have to join like a. So you think that Discord is like the common use of people, but it's a lie. Unfortunately, it's Facebook groups, which breaks my heart. And the most active people on those groups about why my printer settings aren't working are dentists, because they're doing like scans of your teeth, and they're like, I don't want to Google this and figure it out myself. I know what I'll do. I'll post it on the Facebook group and let other people solve my issues instead of searching. But that's why we don't like dentists.
We do not like dentists. They're the worst. They think that there's a hacker out there to solve all their problems without them ever doing anything.
But that
If
is
you're a
good
dentist
offer
listening,
Facebook
do you
groups.
want
Special
to-
service?
A little bit.
Like, can I
You're,
get a
you're
crown
the
for
different
my
kind of
services?
dentist.
Yeah, right? See, exactly. It's just, well, okay.
Look, I woke up in a dentist's office once on a wheelchair. I
Yeah,
still
I've
don't
actually
remember
gone to
going
the
in.
dentist.
Okay. Yeah, you didn't even. Never mind. Okay, wear gloves, guys. If you're gonna use the printer, that's rule number one, and it's a big one. Always wear gloves. Clean the base plate when you're done. I don't clean my base plate all the time because it's my home and I don't care. And it's a pain to clean the base plate. But here, let's do it. Don't leave resin in the vat for more than a week or two because it starts. What happens is the resin starts to separate, and it needs to be shaken before used. So don't leave it in there for a long time. Wipe up any spills with alcohol. Absolutely, keep it off the carpet, because I don't know how you can get it out of the carpet.
You shine it with the UV ray until it hardens.
You will, yes. If it really does come to a spill, that's what you definitely have to do that. Don't just leave it there. Don't just think, oh my gosh, I can't clean this up. Shine it with a UV light. Right, speaking of UV lights, you want a bright one. I will light you.
Do we have eye cancer now?
Yes. You're dead, man.
I already have glasses.
Yeah. Yeah, get a good bright one. Whoa, yeah, that was bright. Okay, let's talk resin.
53rd.
I don't believe you talked about cleaning the base plate. Will you go to that or?
Oh, so this is the base plate.
Sorry.
And you see it's not clean. You put some to it right here, okay? And you dip it in alcohol. There's a bucket in the other room. Put it in alcohol, dip it in, or you can just take alcohol on a rag and wipe it down.
That's what it usually does.
You just wipe it off.
I just wipe it off with a cloth.
Yeah.
Have you ever used like
Thank you.
metal printers or like gold or copper, anything like that?
I have not. Have you, Matthew?
That stuff's really expensive.
Yeah.
We're cheap.
Yeah.
That's
I'm a teacher.
That's
That's
one
all
of the
I
things
got.
I
Teach
do.
high school.
Oh, I just knew a guy who runs like a jewelry business. And
You could have
Oh,
left
are you
His
talking
own
like
rings.
casting? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's the way those. Well, I don't know if you do. You want me to get in how to do that right now? I can. I know how to do it.
Let's move on. We'll come back to that when we're done. Is that okay? Okay. So let's talk resin. I use Elgo resin because it's cheap. There are other off brands. Sure, try them. Whatever you want. The cheaper it is, the cheaper it is. I mean that your figures are easy, like when you're printing a little figure like this, like Gandalf with his little sword, if you're using a cheap resin, that's going to break. Really easy. All you do is bump it, drop it, knock it over, it's going to break, right? So the better the resin, the better the print. Matthew and I both, I think, agree on this one. The best one is Ceratec. Matthew, you use Ceratec Blue?
I use a mix.
Okay, you use a mix between Ceratec. Do you like the Ceratec ABS like or the blue?
I use blue because of the strength, and then I mix it with like a water washable L glue.
So like an Elgo and okay, that's kind of what I do too, except that when I'm cheap, I'll just go Elgo. It just depends. Yes.
What about support structures? How does that work with resin?
When you ask that, what do you mean? How to make supports?
So if I'm doing I don't layer deposition, okay, I can make little support structures, and those are based on gravity, essentially support. But here we're kind of hanging the part.
Right. So you have to have supports.
Yes. Yeah.
And they are made of resin, and we will show you how to do that in lychee, or Chitubox. But we're not using Chitubox.
Oh, okay. I use Chitubox. So
'Cause I call
what's
it
a better alternative?
I'm
You'll
sorry.
see.
Okay.
I have names for that.
Okay.
He likes Chitu box.
No, I can't.
Speaking-
I hate screen supports. So.
It's all about lychee. Okay, you can hate on me, and you can be a Chitubox fan, and you can click here, and you can get the free candy and go home in the white van. That's all okay. You know what? No, I'm just being obnoxious. Matthew told me I was being too strong and too hateful on Chitubox. And the reason, I'll tell you my reasons, and then you can just do whatever you want. Matthew says that it's good for some things, like for dentists who are making.
No, I said okay.
You love dentists.
So with each of these softwares, there's a free version and a paid version.
There is.
The paid version of Lychee is, by all means, more accepted as better. The free version of Chitubox has more features.
Okay.
So that's the
I
trade-off.
struggle with Chitubox.
It's not my. That's why
I struggle with it too.
have gone to Lychee.
Lychee's so much user friendly.
Or is it?
You can do a lifetime where you.
Okay, Matt, come on up here. You're gonna show him a lychee. That's the
Okay.
next thing we're gonna learn.
Okay, because that's the piece that. This is where I struggle the most with 3D printing is the stupid supports.
Right. And Matthew can show you all about supports.
so sorry.
He's pro. But see, here's the cool thing. Chitubox, I tried to use it for several weeks because it came free with my printer. At least for a year, it was free, and then it gets really expensive after that, the pro version. But I started using it. Matthew said I should try Lychee, and within I don't know, I thought within a couple of days, I was feeling very comfortable with it. So I'm sold.
Do you get better results with it? Because that's my problem. Is
Yeah.
I just,
A lot better.
Prints?
okay, yeah, my prints never turn out because the supports are.
Okay, what can I ask a couple of things? What printer are you using?
That one right there in front of you.
Okay, that's part of your problem. This one, the resolution, because when you're using small supports, the resolution has to be pretty good to get the small supports well, to get it well. I actually noticed that this one would start blending supports together,
Yes.
right? That's because of this printer.
Okay.
You need to upgrade to, I would say, at least an Elgu Mars 2, and that's going to cost you $100.
Okay.
Wait,
For a new one.
It's only $100.
Yeah, 119 is what I saw online.
Why didn't I get one earlier?
They're not that expensive.
So
Okay.
Mars 2 is
Exit others.
okay. Well, that's good to know.
Go to Lychee. Lychee's on the desktop. No, just exit out. Well, I don't know why I'm coming up Disney. All right.
All right.
You just accept. So it'll pull up with the last thing, which is what I want you to show them.
Okay.
Okay, so here's a 3D print that I got from Loot Studios, and I got the unsupported one, so Matthew can show you how to support it.
So, just some kind of basics before I dive into this too hard. How many of you are familiar? Well, first of all, let me understand the audience. What do you want to learn? Like, what about 3D printing excites you? What are you excited about 3D printing?
D&D models.
D&D.
Make a case for this in D&D.
That's cool.
These are my dogs.
I like to 3D print functional items. So like
FDM.
for like a latch to put on the bookshelf,
Okay.
or I like to print a little electronic parts that to like fix and repair things that get broken. Cases for like a flipper zeros would be something I'd like to print. Things like that.
Cell phone cases.
Why wouldn't you just use an FDM printer for that?
Okay, then that's the answer. Is use an FDM.
No, not necessarily.
It depends on the situation.
That's true.
For example, the next thing as I bought, okay, you're just gonna laugh at me. I bought the Linus Tech Tips screwdriver, and I'm gonna buy a bunch more bits. And next I want to buy a bit holder to buy the extra sets of bits. And so on Thingiverse, if you type in the LTT screwdriver and you click on the bits, there's like a model that you can put inside of an Altoids tin. It'd be pretty cool.
Why are we loading the freebie plus thing?
Well, Raspberry Pi case.
So the reason why I'll explain it is in a sec. So in a second. Now I kind of get an audience. I want to answer your question really quick. The way 3D printing works to cast metal is you use a different kind of resin. You put it in kind of a mold. And then you burn away the mold, the resin, because it's a different kind of resin. They make it so that it's resin that can burn away. Then you fill that mold with liquid metal. So it's still just a regular printer like this, but
you're creating the mold.
So it's just like casting it.
it's exactly
Just
like
casting it, but you're using resin as the
Okay.
mold.
And same thing with dice
Wax.
making. If you're making dice, it's the exact same thing except a different kind of mold. It's a silicone mold because you don't have to put it in a really hot oven. That's the
Okay.
difference. So
That's cool.
all of those are things that you can do with a 3D printer.
I also think you can use normal resin for dice, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, what you do is you make the master dice set first
Yeah, the master
out
dice,
of the 3D printed dice, and then dead on you use regular resin.
Yeah,
To
instead
make
of the
regular
burnable
dice.
resin to make dice. Yeah, I
Why
once wanted to
regular
get
resin?
into dice making.
Because it is stronger and it doesn't chip.
Okay.
Whereas the 3D printed resin is great for masters, great for miniatures, not so great for throwing against the wall. If that makes
Because
sense.
it's brittle.
I am not going to touch this build plate because I don't know how clean it is.
It's not clean.
Well, then you should wear gloves. You just broke your own rule.
I did.
Um,
And I didn't bring in gloves for me.
One of the things about this that I did want to mention is right here you have fluorescent light bulbs. What that means is this cover is not enough to protect the resin in here, so you should get a box that goes over it.
Those are not actually fluorescent.
I don't-
Point well taken.
They're LEDs.
I don't know if it's by a window. That's something else where it's in this office space. That's something you'll have to consider.
'Cause we-
Otherwise, another thing is if you're printing at home and it's in cold temperatures, another good idea is just to, again, put a box over it. It can act as an enclosure
Okay.
Keeps
a
it warm.
really cheap
'Cause-
enclosure that you don't have to build.
And the box that came in is the great one.
And I'm in the basement, so
Yep.
I'm usually pretty
That's
cold.
what I do. I've noticed when I do that, I usually maintain a temperature of around 74 degrees Fahrenheit, which
Okay.
is ideal printing range.
Okay.
And I live in same temperature weather as here, so no problems. And I also print in the basement. I've also done it in the garage. Same. The box works great. You can build a better enclosure with venting and heating and all that stuff,
Or buy one.
or you can use a cardboard box, whichever one you want to use. So, will you take the case off again? Because I'm not going to touch it without gloves.
The case is actually.
The build plate right here, the orientation that you're seeing on the screen this is the bottom of that build plate. This is right here, if that makes sense. So the way it prints is it goes down and it picks up. We mentioned this. That's a mention before. Answer your question. The way supports work is that you can think of it like an FDM machine that's hanging in the midair. So what you have to do is let's look at a layer right here. So if I were to orient this like this, so that its shoe is on like the bottom of the build plate right there. And then we're to look at layer by layer. You can see it starts right here. I would need to support that single instant right there. There we go. Sorry, I use a Mac. Right here you see what these are called islands right here. Each one of these individual pieces need a support. Why? Because if I were to print this and it's not touching the build plate in some way, it's gonna
form the layer, form the little bit of resin, and then this thing's gonna pick up, and that little piece, it was never connected to the build plate, so it's just
fall
gonna
off and
stay
do
in the vat. And that's kind of like,
That'll kill your print.
that's what would happen in this case, because you see right here we have that little tiny gap right there. It would just keep trying to print this shape, because that's really all that your printer is doing. Is it's you can think of it as like a phone screen, and in the phone screen it's flashing this image, this 2D image in UV light, and that's forming in the vat, and then when it rises up, it's supposed to stick to the build plate and detach from the FEP. That's the whole process. And so you have to support each of those parts. The problem is as we can see here as we're looking, there are a lot of those friggin' islands, is what they're called. Like
things that just appear without touching the
yeah,
the blade.
this is floating in midair, right? So I have to add a support there, and that's probably where actually I think a lot of your issues. I don't have so much problems as with these machines. I think a lot of the problems come down to two big things: temperature, and then your settings and your ability to support something. And I threw this case on right here because I wanted to show an example of there are different problems that you're having for different kind of what you're printing. Like FDM, one of the problems that you have is getting details, face-up details, because as you're getting those squirrely lines, it doesn't do overhangs great with detail. And that's just a part of 3D printing. Part of the problems with Resin's printing is you can get warping. And you would have to heavily support warping. Where this is attached to the build plate through that entire green layer, that's a pretty strong connection. And so looking here, would I have to do any supports? The answer is yes.
Yes.
Where?
What? Wait, why?
In the holes.
For the
Let's.
windows?
This is it. Yeah, exactly. You can see as it's printing. It's printing here. Great. No problem. Oh, right there at that overhang, we're having just a right there at that tiny thing. That's an island. That would be a print failure.
This
So-
gives a lot more detail than 2D box.
Yeah. It
So,
does.
so FDM
I think that's where my
has the
struggle is,
ability
'cause it does it
to bridge.
To bridge.
Never does it.
Because it'll go
Yeah.
slower and it'll
Mhm.
spin the fan and cool it, so it's kind of is cooling.
Resin
the
does
air.
not have that ability.
Nope.
So every one of those overhangs would have a problem. So the question then becomes, is there a way that I could orient this that would make it so that I could print it with no problems? The answer is kind of. Well, kind of.
You
Let's
can.
go back here.
You could eliminate a lot of them.
I could angle it like this, and then we're going by layer, it's, see how it's growing right there? It's growing up. Problem here is then you get this
The
one
inside.
edge that's not very strong, and you can get pocket marks here. So if I were actually printing this for reals, what I would probably do is I would split, and I was like, I have to do this in resin. I would split this part in half, and then I would print both sides flat.
And then glue them together.
Mm-hmm.
Can you show us how to do that?
I can absolutely show you how to do that.
Okay, so
Although honestly, I would still, if it were me, I would not do it. I would not do it with the resin printer. I would go FDM.
okay, so you need supports for those windows, but presumably if the windows were small enough, you would not need supports, correct?
I think
Yes.
Theoretically, if they were small enough, they would be solid and not windows. But they would always, if it's presented vertically like that, you will always need some kind of support. Because you got to look at it as, whereas FDM, you're kind of thinking it as an object that's interacting. Resin printing isn't. It's literally just like picture laid on top.
And what
Picture
else they
laid on
can
top.
do
A
is
bunch
they
of
can put
pictures laid
supports
on top.
inside, but
So
that
you
gets
have
nasty.
To, you have
When you
to
guys say
have a
FDM, are you
piece
guys just
underneath
meaning like
so
a
that it-
filament?
Filament.
printer?
Yeah, filament printer.
What
Yep.
does
Okay.
support look like then?
Well, you can
I thought.
That's a great
do
question.
different types of support.
That's a good question.
Well, let's see how. I think this is a great idea. Let's see how. Let's see. I want to arrange this so it's 90 degrees, which is 0 here. Let's actually do this as it is. So I'm going to be really lazy, and I'm going to let it generate auto supports for me. And I did medium, just because I'm lazy. You could choose. So the heavier level support you do, that like medium,
Figure eight
light,
supports.
heavy, the harder it is to remove. And the more likely it is you are to get like pocket marks. Think of like
What's a pocket mark?
It's where the supports connect onto your piece, and when you break it, it's gonna get little pieces gonna not be all smooth.
I can
So
show
like
you.
for this case, it probably doesn't matter, but for
I mean, I've had to use like a knife or something to remove
Yeah.
them because that's the only way to get them off.
Right. Well,
So you
I'm gonna
clean
teach you a trick to that.
These are pocket
Okay.
marks right here.
what?
Little ridges, and I'll pass that out. You can see
Just don't pop it.
they're like little parts that either are indentations or the opposite of an indentation is
Extrusion.
extrusions. Yes, exactly. Where a little bit of the support is left, or it's taken more resin than it wanted.
Really cool piece.
Thank you.
So we did an auto support right here. It's made a mistake and hasn't added some here. This is because auto generation sucks, but Lychee has this great thing where you could search for island detection.
So over here, if you saw, he went to click on the island. Did you do that? Did you go to islands?
Yeah.
I went there and searched for select islands.
And what it's doing is just algorithmically going layer by layer and saying, is there an island? Is there an island? Is there an island?
So those supports are just little stilts then.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you know how far apart to space the stilts?
That's up to you. So that's a great question.
It's an art.
That is the answer. Is it depends. So like for this, I would probably add one right there,
I would too.
right there, and
Need
call
some
it
more.
good. Right there, call
Oh,
it
so you're
good.
just clicking on the island and adding the support, and bam,
Yeah.
it's there.
That's
Yeah,
it.
and then you have to pull it off when you're done.
And it's not hard to pull off.
Is it like
The secret is hot water. Boiling hot water. You dip it in hot water, and those
Yeah.
supports will come off without.
So what
any
I do, I have a little vat, a separate. It's not a vat. It's just like a little
tub.
a container, and I will boil boiling hot water in like one of those little tea makers from Amazon for like $12.
I throw mine in
And
the
I'll pull it in, and then I'll just throw these in, and then the supports will come away like butter.
Okay, I already have a tea maker, so that's gonna make this super
Perfect.
so? Is it easier or harder than like Warhammer supports? You know how like Warhammer comes
Yeah.
in a flat piece.
The answer is it's way easier.
Way
Oh.
easier.
Way easier, way less cleanup.
Cool.
I almost do no cleanup, and I've done a lot of Warhammer models. One of the things I did want to show you, these are really big gaps, but sometimes you have islands that are really tiny. I wanted to show you if I wanted to.
I think the one at the top might be a good example of that.
I
The
could-
little circle.
I could create,
Braces inside.
braces on the inside and islands on the inside, like support it using the thing itself, if that makes sense.
Okay, so instead of using a base at the bottom,
Mhm.
you do it directly.
Okay.
Yep, and those are pretty easy. And if you look closely at some of the models, you might be able to see one of those. Like
Sometimes
here,
my supports I
here
don't
I
put them
wouldn't
up.
do an external one like that. I would just do an internal one.
Does it slow it down based on how many supports you have?
Not really. No.
Yes. Yeah, it totally does.
Oh.
But what the cool thing is that
No, it's going up by how many layers it is.
what do you mean by slow down?
Slow
Does it
down the
make
print.
The print time
Oh, the print time? No.
No.
Your computer
Perfect.
to display? Yes.
Oh, okay. Different thing.
Oh, you mean that it slows your computer down? Okay.
Yeah.
But what you can
Live stream
do,
is longer.
what you can do is you can hide support. So you can hide. So you hide all. Like if this one had so many, and then I was going to go manually, I would do auto support, and then I would hide all the supports as I go and manually add some.
Okay.
If that makes sense. So this one actually did pretty well too quickly, and I don't like that. So this is an example of like how to do a case, and I know that's kind of boring for most people. Go ahead.
How would you get rid of the? When you did the auto support, it essentially just put a lot of unnecessary supports at the bottom.
No. It's not, you think they're unnecessary.
But they actually aren't.
They aren't.
Because think about how it's printing. It's a huge layer right here, a huge surface area, like with a ton of islands. And I'll try to show it to you.
He's probably talking about the boat underneath too. Why does it have to have that?
Oh, the boat.
Yeah.
So like, look at all the surface area that this many supports is trying to hit.
Oh, does that mean it can't come off the build plate?
Yes.
Well, this right here is. Are you talking about all of these?
This right here, the raft.
Why
at the
don't you
bottom.
just use the why did it make the raft?
That's a great question. The answer is because of surface tension.
Yep.
As you're pulling stuff off of the FEP, it's like the light binds it to the FEP itself, and then you've got to have enough tension and strength that as it pulls off, you can overcome that elasticity.
Yeah, but that thing's huge and flat.
That's why they added so many supports.
Well, but why don't you just ditch the supports and drop it flat?
That's exactly what I would recommend doing.
That is what I'd ask. Why have those supports? Why not just?
Well, there's a reason. There is a reason. If you're doing something like 3D miniatures, you don't really want to have to be digging. Okay, so
for this specifically, I mean.
But for this, there's no reason not to.
There's no reason to. But like, this is not going to be easy to get off. It's going to be stuck to the base plate, and you're going to be kind of really getting at it with a metal scraper trying to get that off, because it's on there really good and hard.
So how do you remove?
And so you're going to damage the. If you don't want it damaged, then you want to use those supports like they've done for you.
Oh, you don't want to damage
Your piece.
Your actual piece.
It's not the plate.
Oh.
Because then it won't look good anymore.
Oh, the piece.
Yeah,
Yes.
the piece
So
itself,
it's
because otherwise,
protect the
so there are
That's right.
Okay.
There are, yes. And then when doing 3D miniatures, I'd say most of the time you don't really want to damage your piece. You don't want marks all over it. They're
For
not
this,
supposed to be there.
that is one of the bigger surfaces,
Don't-
so I would get not
Yep.
wanting to
Don't,
damage
a
it.
lot of miniatures though have a plate at the bottom anyway, which you don't.
No, usually what happens is you print the miniature, and then you print a base. And you usually
and you
glue
attach the base.
yes.
There's a specific, but you're dead on. There are people who do that, and I think M3M or whatever M3MD0
Forge or something like that?
MC, yeah, they do it. The problem with that is those are really, really hard to support, and I'll show you exactly why.
Oh, is that what I'm struggling with then?
Mhm.
Because like I have that's what I'm usually trying to do is like Hero Forge or something.
Dad, where are your STLs?
Well,
On
and if
the
you
desktop.
look at, have you done Warhammer
No.
figurines? Well, Warhammer
There's the one smiling in a
figurines, you
chair.
essentially make the figurine and then you
There's a
glue
couple.
it to the
Yeah.
base
The
plate,
base plate.
so that it's easier to even paint to.
That makes a lot of sense because like that's exactly what I was thinking about was the base plate for the.
Oh.
So this is actually a really good example of what you're talking
Yeah.
about. This has with it already attached a base. The
Yes.
problem I'm going to run into with this is there will be underhangs right here that I'll need to support.
Oh.
And how do I support them without marring this surface? I'll have to attach them to here. And if you're caring about miniatures and how it looks,
That ruins
you don't want that.
And supports really don't take very much resin.
No.
So
It's like another extra 30 cents, 50 cents.
one thing I do want to call out is my dad showed you a lot of huge miniatures. That's not like real D&D
No,
size.
They're mostly this big.
Yeah, so he showed you in 75 millimeter
Because I
scale.
don't like to paint small things.
Most miniatures are much smaller. I would say they are in the scale of like
32 millimeter.
which this this
Yeah.
one is.
These are 75 millimeter scale, and most people print 32 millimeter. I print 75, just because it makes it easier for me
It'd
to
be
paint.
closer to this. This is a lot what you'd be closer to. So as you're seeing, like if the supports are so big, you have such a small space, you have to be a little bit careful about how you're doing it, which is why they do this. As I'm looking at this and I care how it looks, I would look at this model and be like, okay, I'm gonna add supports here. What are the parts that I care about looking super nice?
The face, the front.
The face, the front, right? And then I tell myself, if I print it horizontally like this, I have a huge surface area right here that's directly parallel to the plate. I don't want parallel because parallel is bad for printing unless it's directly attached because you get big surface areas that you have to support. Whereas if I angle it a little bit, and
this is what I need.
if I angle it like I think
Like that.
40, 41, 42 degrees is usually the preferred.
Yep.
There's like a statistical exact number that people recommend. I don't remember off the top of my head because I find it's more finicky
Do
than
the
that.
auto angle. Let's see what it says.
Lychee's cool and has audio orientations that'll try to like figure out. Like this one is pretty good right here at
It's
a
kind
good
of on the
orientation.
side,
If you
yep.
don't like it, you can try it again, and you can just say no. Don't tell me what you want. Do what I want.
Show them how to do auto supports too.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a
All right,
second.
all right.
He just showed auto supports.
That's
well,
true.
yeah, but it's.
But this is different because it's not just a flat piece.
Yeah, this is a lot more complex, so that's why I still kind of.
Oh yeah.
So say you actually accidentally like dug into a model, could you like use Bondo or Quick Seal to essentially fill that hole and then
I would do
shape
milliput,
it?
but yeah.
Milliput?
Mm-hmm.
It's not resin. It's like you mix the two together. It's like play.
But you can see the model here starts. I'd add a support here. I'd add a support here. Keep going. I'd add one there. I'd add one there. Keep going. I'd add one there. Keep going. I'd have to add one here for the foot. These are all looking good. So one thing that Lychee does that's kind of nice is it shows you yellow where these are bad overhangs that you'd have to add supports to. You can see obviously there's some there that I need to add. Some right there, like if I didn't add one there, that would print in the middle of the space.
Just the islands.
So the yellow mark is what the software considers an island.
It considers something that you need to. It's a warning you need to watch out for.
Okay, so you need to support those.
So this orientation isn't the best I've ever done. So let's see auto oriented. We'll see if it's better. It looks just about the same. Slightly better, just about the same. But I am insanely lazy because I don't have time to do this.
I don't ever do my supports.
I'd say with auto oriented, it's in the more like detail oriented parts, the one you'd really care about instead of.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to talk about is there's a bunch of these settings. I will send in the Discord. There's this guy. His name is 3D Printing Pro. He is widely accepted as the best. Because this is an art, supporting miniatures is an art. He's widely accepted as the best supporter of all minis ever of all time. Lots of like the places his only job is to support minis, and he like has a team of like 15 other guys who just support minis.
When you say support, his entire job is to add support.
It's to go here and click buttons. Yes.
and so are they the ones with the Patreon? Because I know someone that supports them if they're the ones with the Patreon.
There are many Patreons that pay him to support their like many of them.
Oh, okay.
He is.
He's not the one with the Patreon. But they'll design. A lot of studios will design them and then pay somebody to go support. Create
that. He's the one that they pay to support.
So here's a really good example of why what I'm talking about is a problem. If I look at the size of that attached to that model, it's just like if I did that to his knife, it literally encompasses the entire knife. There's no way you're going to be able to remove that without snapping the knife, even if you use hot water.
Or if you have to, you basically have to go in with a knife, an X-Acto knife, and get it exactly perfect.
So there are different settings of these that he has. What I recommend is just go copy his settings and use them.
Copy his settings and use them.
Yep, and that's copying these settings. That's not adding supports. It's just creating the tools for this. You have like a light version. A light version looks small, medium,
and
heavy.
There's different tips you can use. And
one of the things I would recommend is with a model, have a couple of mediums and a lot of lights. Mediums, because mediums help it attach to the base plate, whereas if you do all lights, you do have the chance of it not being able to overcome the suction force of your FEP. Which, by the way, when he said use NFEP, it's better. The reason why is because it has less surface tension. Some people will actually go and like wax their FEP.
Well, that makes sense actually, because then it doesn't bind to the FEP.
The whole point is remove surface tension. That's what NFEP is better at. Is it's got a lower surface tension attached to it. I'm going to show you my lazy version of how to do supports.
And by the way, this actually works most of the time. I rarely, using the auto settings, I rarely have a failed print, which is why I like Lychee so much.
I will tell it to generate auto supports. These are kind of like what those supports are looking like. You can see it hasn't hit everywhere, but it's done pretty good. Then all I'll tell is I go tell it to search for islands, because no matter how well you do it, it will probably find islands. If it's not, we've done something amazing, and we should pray to whatever universe that has solved our problem. Yeah, we have sacrificed enough animals to the 3D printing gods.
So that's why Bash has a farm.
I mean, you got to make sure those 3D print minis are perfect, right?
As you can see here, these are all of the islands that it was going through as it was detecting, and we can actually see that. As like, look at the armpit right here. You see how that it's got that red space allocated that just appeared. It means it didn't have the auto stuff didn't find that. That's probably what you're finding with your prints, honestly.
Click on
It's,
add supports to all islands.
Okay.
This is a cool thing. Lychee
this is
does.
why I like Lychee. Is instead of those 57, I now have to do 3.
There are now 2 islands.
It went and found most of them and was able to do it. Now we just do a few manually.
Which we can see right here.
Sometimes that could be a pain.
Again, this is one of those examples where I would do a Control Alt.
There you go.
What is that?
It's trying to get the support right in the right place.
Oh, what is that thing?
This is an example of where one of the islands are.
Well, what is it in the model?
I don't know.
It looks like a boot
On
strap.
the back of the strap for his greaves.
Okay.
Oh, I'm hitting FN Alt. That's why it's not working.
Lenovo
'cause you're a
strikes
Mac.
again.
Mac user, huh?
See, I just
There you go.
added a model there, and I didn't care super much about it because it's at the backside of his foot, so I don't care if that visibly pockets. It just doesn't matter to me. Here, I would care. Again, I guess not at all because it's the backside of a blade. So I could do this natively where it's doing a big one right there. That would be fine.
It'll be fine.
Or I could also do the Control Alt thing that I just showed you and tie it to his wrist there.
Could you tie it to another support?
You could.
You can.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I'll show that too.
Okay, nice. I almost like that better.
See,
And again,
can you see
these
why we were in love with Lychee?
these
Yeah.
these
This is nice. Yeah.
these supports aren't optimized to be good. And let me show you
When
why.
you say optimized, you mean we haven't set the right settings?
Right, because look how thick
They're
this
too
is still
thick.
attaching. What I would probably do is I would probably, like, let's do
So
this
thin
example.
a lot of these out because they're too thick.
I would lower the tip diameter so it's much smaller like that. I would increase the tip length. Well, no, I don't know that I would increase the tip length. I'd do something closer to that where it's a smaller thing that I'm removing. Let me show you an example of what a professional person who's supported it. Oh no, I moved. Well, it's fine.
That's fine.
You mentioned Patreons. Patreons will support them automatically sometimes for you. This is an
Right.
example of someone who has done it who gets paid to do it.
And we pay them because it's worth
Again,
it.
this is bigger because it's a 75 millimeter version, and you'd support that a little bit differently.
Right.
Arrange.
Yeah, I know someone that's all they do with their 3D prints is they just pay someone to do it because they got sick of it.
And I mentioned how it's not optimized. Look how tiny those attachments are. How long they've done it.
Oh, wow.
Their supports have supports.
They're better.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
I'm impressed.
Can we see how they did the supports for the base with the throne?
Sure.
If I have them,
You do.
I do.
You do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is exactly where I struggled with the stupid sports.
So
So they take it all the way off and pick up,
And
up
see,
off
they
the
angle
base.
it too, it
Yep.
looks like.
That's interesting.
Yep.
'Cause that
Because
way
you
it gives
mentioned how
uh,
the overhangs, like the
In the
Little-
middle.
and you can see it.
arches.
You can see it. Those are.
And then when you go to pry this off, you're going to damage this, and who cares? Because you're going to get rid of those anyway.
As far as
that
removing
makes
those,
sense.
do you go in with like some snippers, a Dremel?
Oh.
That's a great question. So the answer is I use an X-Acto blade, but if you put it in
That's
warm
right.
water,
don't
honestly,
even use it.
you can just remove it with your gloves most of the time.
You can just, it just pulls right off.
Something I could use the back of a paintbrush to like just scrape that away, or an X-Acto
Because
blade.
you're removing it before it's
Before we cure it.
So it's
Okay.
I take it off the build plate directly in hot water.
No, I put in alcohol first.
I put mine directly in hot water,
I put mine.
shake it off, get rid of all the stuff, the supports, and then I put it in my alcohol.
Okay, so you do it. Okay, that's interesting. Because I've always put it straight in alcohol as soon as I print.
But either way will work. Because I do it. I put mine.
But
right
then
in
you're cleaning
alcohol.
supports is the problem, and I don't like to waste my nice alcohol on stupid supports.
Okay.
They're nice
That's-
Your brother.
That's a legitimate reason.
One of the things though is like, but I do want to mention this is then how ethically do you remove the water? The answer is you cure it.
You have
Oh,
to put it in
yeah.
the sun.
Can't you just leave it in the sun? and
You
then
can.
throw it away
Yeah,
later?
then that's
Because it's
exactly
cured.
what I do because
Yeah,
it's
that's-
cured and
that's
it's
what I
just
do.
water.
Same with your
Like
paper
alcohol.
towels and whatever you get resin on.
And they have a lot of resins that are water washable, so you don't even need alcohol anymore.
Oh, really?
That's a new thing. I would highly recommend doing it in an ethical way, not under a sink with the tap running. That's not very ethical.
Or don't put it in your garden.
Well, that and the city's actually gonna get you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
They'll find you.
I think
we're
that
almost
was
out
it.
of time, Matt. So
I think that was all I had.
yeah. Well, I actually want to have you show them Loot Studios
Well,
because they might think this is super cool. They're
Actually,
in the
it is
miniatures.
really cool. I pulled mine. It up on my computer.
MZM420 I think is a better
Free
one.
right now.
You think?
So,
I don't think so, but okay.
so maybe I missed this, but what's the advantage of a resin printer versus a traditional 3D printer?
That's a really good question. It's all about the resolution,
Detail.
the detail.
Detail. In miniatures, you highly value detail.
Well, you want to see the little lines on the feathers of your
Yes.
eagle, right? You want all the little you want this. You want the texture, and you're not going to get texture with a filament printer.
No. This
So
is
probably get,
yeah. That's
I don't
why
know,
resin is
aliasing
what you
artifacts?
use
Right.
for miniatures. FDM you use for most other things just fine.
Yeah.
Miniatures you really do want
So-
the detail.
Can you do double shot prints?
You can print as many things that fit on the build plate.
Well, no. Let's say I do one print, finish that print, leave it on the build plate,
No.
and assuming it's not obstructing the light from something else, can I put that back in?
No, because think about it. It's the build plate has to hit
Gotta
the.
go all the way down.
It's got to go to level 0 every print, and then it prints out
Oh, there's
this
not
way.
enough space.
Parallel.
Okay.
Because and that the light is what gives it. Yeah, that's the light's what cures it.
So-
they can.
You can double shot filament that one.
Yes.
Filament one.
Filament. Well, kind of. It depends if it gets in the way of the head,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
but
But it's still possible.
it is
No,
possible.
My thought would be that I've got just a support rectangle I print, okay, and then next to that I print something else.
Show them Loot Studios.
But you
that-
can do those
I was
both
just
at the
printing
same
them
time.
at the same time.
The problem
Print them
is-
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the problem is
That's
if
how
you do
you
that,
do it.
this will go all the way down to 0 out to home. It's gonna home. Home is flat against the FEP.
And there's not enough space.
Yeah, it'll rip. That's actually how people rip their FEP. Is they're like, oh,
What did
I
you
have
do?
clean my vat is clean, and it'll go down. You've got because you had an island you didn't support. It'll go down, hit a little piece of resin,
In the
and
vat.
push it through your FEP, and that's how you can get cracked LCD screens. That's how you can get ripped FEP. All that problem. So I did want to mention. You mentioned you're into D&D models.
I empty it every time and clean it every time.
Yeah, that's.
You can also do
when
just
you- if
expose a
you're going to
layer
clean it,
and then
filter
lift it
your
out.
Close it later and then rip. Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay, that's not a bad idea. Either.
You can go
I
on
just-
Thingiverse to get free models. Another person who does great free models is MZ4250. These are all free. You don't have to pay for any of these
Oh,
D&D
those are really
models.
good, too.
What I'm showing you next is this is
But
a
these are
bugbear.
not supported. So you they
well,
come supported?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He has, if you join a Patreon for $2 once, he'll give you access to a drive with all of the supported ones with thousands of files you can download.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not bad.
For $2?
For like $2, yeah.
That's awesome.
$2 for the
But
support.
one thing I want to call out is look at the quality of the face, and then this is what my dad is so happy about is you have stuff like this because it's what you're buying into is the quality
The
of some
quality of your prints. Yeah, I mean that's why I liked some of the other.
where you could do this, but we're talking money now. Like, I mean, it's just different. That's why these ones are higher quality than this. But if you're like doing DD and you're like, I don't want to spend any money, or if you're doing a base model that you want to add stuff to, I would probably do this and then throw that into Blender and mess with it.
And then you can add the details.
How much does Loot Studios cost a month?
It's $15.
$15. And then every month they come out with new. Show them what you can get for a whole month's worth.
With this, you can get all of this. This is
These
this
ones
month.
come supported though.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
They do. So
Yeah, that model that they were showing us, it's from Loot Studios,
It
I
is.
believe he said.
I take a lot of Loot Studios models
Okay.
just because.
Yeah, this is, and they'll do terrain and stuff. I'm not trying to sell you on Loot Studios. I don't. You can do whatever you want to print. But yeah.
Okay.
It's a good resource.
All right.
I like those posts.
Are we out of time?
You have as much time as you want.
Okay.
No, yeah, I'm actually very interested in this. So.
If you're looking for other models, I think my mini factory is probably
My mini factory is awesome.
where I go to like look for. So shout out some D&D thing you're looking for specifically.
Tiefling.
I want
Say it again.
Tiefling.
A tiefling.
I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Tieflings
When I
are cool.
first learned about them, it was from someone
So you
who
could go
pronounced
here,
it the other way.
you
and
find-
didn't learn about the right pronunciation.
You can find your exact model you're looking for.
Oh, that's cool.
One of the things is you could go all in and be like, I am going to buy so many of these Patreons. I'm going to support all these things. I'm going to get all these models. Or you could target
You
just
could
like
spend
one or two and print it.
$300 a month until your wife finds out.
I did that 1 month.
1 month. And you spent
Do you DM?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. The other guy I know that is way into
Okay,
this is also.
okay, I have a question.
I do
What
as
if I
well.
want a castle with a wall in the inside of a mountain, also known as
He wants Lord of the Rings stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, look, a fantasy castle too.
Hey, that looks like.
That one looks like Minas Tirith too.
But let's do Minas Tirith specifically.
Sometimes you can't use the
Minas-
Just balderize.
Right there it is.
There it is.
And this one's free.
I would like to print that. I would like to print
But
that.
here's, I mean, okay, I'm gonna step away from 3D printing for a second. We're gonna talk about size versus, so each of these, like, hold up, Belrog, that is kind of an expensive print. That probably took a full, I would say a full bottle, so a full kilogram
maybe
of
1.5,
resin. Yeah,
but-
which a bottle is about $20, $25.
20 to 30 bucks.
Yeah.
A
Was
bottle.
that one print or like 5 that you glued together?
One for this wing.
That was like,
one for
yeah,
this
5
wing,
you glued
one
together.
for
I
the
was gonna
top.
say, you could
one
do
for
it
the
on this
sword.
small of a printer for-
Yeah, it was like 5-6 prints.
And then if you want to actually, we mentioned how you join them. You could look and see the milliput joins. And I only know this because I did it right here around the tail. You can see them on the wings right here. You can see where they were joined.
Yeah. I'll pass this guy around. Johnson.
But that's where like a good use case of like
Support the head.
where would FDM be a better printer?
Right.
And then there's the debate like if you're building a really big thing, like maybe you should do it in foam. Is a thought for Dungeon Masters. It's more time a little bit, but it's you don't have to buy a printer and it's free. Those are all so.
And you print in super low density. So can you have like can you print in a mesh?
And hollow? Can you print it hollow?
You can print
I
hollow.
always struggle with buildings in D&D because I feel like I end up just drawing them out
that one's
most
so
of the time.
cool.
Doors
And then-
open.
It.
But I mean, something
Well, I
like
don't
that
wanna
is
break it.
cool and fun.
Wait, show us the open doors
Also,
on the camera. Tilt it down a little bit.
Because
There you
that's
go.
where I have a hard time drawing the line
That's
of
cool.
buildings.
It's cool. But this takes what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 prints. So, you know. That's
If anyone here
Well, it's
plays
not-
Warhammer, you're gonna save money getting this and a bunch of bottles.
How much do you think it would cost
Seriously,
to
my
buy
friend
something
could have
like
bought
that?
like 5 cars with how many minis he bought.
I don't know.
Warhammer.
I think that
Okay,
ball
let-
is probably a
New car.
I
300
already
buck.
know.
Let's go
Not
back to the
you.
slideshows. Let's finish this
I
up.
already know how.
Here's what I would do. I would go to Yegi, and some of these are ethically challenged, meaning that it's not done by people who are legit.
They were just ripping somebody else off, basically.
Well, or they made the model, but they didn't have permissions to make the model.
They didn't have the
Oh,
IP for it.
The licensing.
So there's your answer. This would cost $14.
But Games Warehouse, that's not. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, let's get back to the slideshow and we'll be done. You guys can
I don't know where that is.
exit it out. Go to the desktop.
Here, you can drive.
No, go ahead. Desktop. You're there.
Well, sometimes even
Exit out.
selling a model like this, that you don't have rights to sell it.
Okay, just click anywhere.
But depending on where you get the model from,
Okay. Oh. Let's just go back.
sell a model.
Okay, right here. Okay, so this is
If you create
how you do it.
that's fine.
So get your STL.
Model, but if you buy it,
Put resin in the vat.
What if I create the depth with an AI and then
Okay, we're doing the class now.
Okay. Shh. Yeah.
You could you. Oh wait, I don't. Okay, cool. All right, cool. This is kind of important. Don't fill your vat up more than 3/4, because you fill the vat up when you think it's full, and then that base plate goes down in the water. I mean in the resin, and it's going to come up and spill all over the place. Right.
That's all.
This placement. Exactly. So be a little careful about that. I have done it too. Then you put your STL file on your USB drive, put it in the back. Let's see. Turn on print and go to the print screen and print it. That's pretty much it on these. And if you have if you want to do a print, I'll be happy to show you how to do it on the machine itself. But it's really easy. Then when you're done, remove the base plate and pry off your print with a metal scraper. Wash the print in alcohol. Matthew washes it in hot water. And when I say hot water, I really mean hot water. As hot as you can stand touching.
With gloves.
With gloves, which is pretty hot. Yeah, the hotter the better. Put it in the alcohol or water, and then put it in hot water. How long do you keep yours in the hot water, Matt?
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah, 20, 30 seconds. Not too long. Because the longer you leave it in there, the whole miniature is starting to become more and more pliable. And like if you're printing like a
Less and less pliable. Oh, well, you mean the hot water? Yeah.
More. And if you're like printed this, for example, and you've got this sword in there, and it's in the water with all of these supports, that sword's getting more and more flimsy and easier to break.
And becomes a whip.
And yes, and it will start to droop. And what you can do if it does droop after doing that is just kind of hold it and let it cool, and it'll be fine. It'll just cool to where it's supposed to be. But yeah, just be a little careful of that. Okay, let's see. What else? Wash the print again in alcohol, dry it off with a paper towel, shine a UV light on it. In the other room, we do have a UV light you can use.
I usually just put it by a window.
That works too. How long do you have to put it in the sun for?
Well,
I usually leave it over through a day because like I'm not in any rush.
Right.
the problem that I do say with the sun is the longer it gets UV exposure, the more brittle the print becomes.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
Usually I put these in, and the reason why these swords don't break when I move it like that much is because we've only exposed it to UV light for maybe like 30 seconds.
Okay, so it's worth the
to a minute.
investment of a UV light then.
And you could buy a special UV curing station.
Or you can build one.
Or build one.
Really easy.
Yeah.
And the dentist
essentially you
tools
just
also
need a
have little-
UV LED
Yes.
strips.
Yeah, you can just get a turntable and a little
Right.
LED.
Oh, that makes sense. And then you just need
Yeah.
I went and bought one. It was $30, totally worth it. It spins the thing around with the UV lights and.
I made one. Mine's bigger.
He made one. Okay. Clean your. We already talked about this, and yes, I called this the 12-step program, but I lied. Join the dark side. We have tacos.
Yeah, taco.
Taco. Okay, Taco did not join the dark side. I did lie. All right, moving on. This is a big controversy with Matt and I. What's the best one to buy?
Depends on what you want to do.
That's fair. And there's a whole controversy with Elgu right now. Right, Matt? Explain the controversy.
They're freaking locking their boards, so you have to use Chitubox. Because you have a slicer that's converting the STL code into machine code that's readable by the machine. They're like, we have our motherboard, we're protecting it.
What
so
does that mean, locking the board?
Meaning that they're not publicly opening the instructions of their motherboard.
Proprietary.
Oh, so you can't use
the
your other
Bluetooth.
slicer anymore. So you
Yeah,
have to use
they
their
made
shitty box.
a privatized deal with Chitubox.
That makes me mad.
Shitty box is what I call it too. But yes. And it's frustrating. So, well, I think this is the best deal for the printer. I think it's a really great printer. What would you?
Which is open source right now. It's just they said they're going to do that, and they're not going to do that.
They're
in the
not
future.
supporting it in the future. But I think the community is going to scream enough, and they're going to have to give in. I'm pretty sure.
Frozens are a good alternative. I
Or we get to do firmware reverse engineering.
Say it again.
Open source up to which generation?
The current.
Okay.
3 or?
Yeah.
3.
So you're saying this one we could buy it today,
And it would be supported.
but like if we bought it in 6 months or a year or something, it might not be.
Might not be. So you'd be forced to use Chitubox.
Well then, yeah, can you?
And then you'd be
firmware?
forced to buy a subscription to get
Can
the
you
higher
downgrade
features.
stuff too?
Sometimes you can
Downgrade. It depends if they use a different motherboard or not.
You
I
say,
don't know
oh,
unless I break it apart.
Yeah.
Which I guarantee people do. So this is one of the
Yeah.
cool areas of the hackerspace is there are
You
a
can
lot
always
of
reverse engineer
modifications and a lot of modifications that you can do on this stuff.
Could always reverse
Like all
engineer
open
it.
source it anyway, jerk.
Miniature painting. That's the fun part. If you're into miniature painting, and he is. He's actually pro. I am not. I am lazy. Like, for example, I don't want to spend any more than, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes on a paint. So I use contrast paints a lot, like for this.
What's a contrast paint?
It's like translucent, kind of.
Yeah.
Lets you see the details underneath.
Exactly, and it makes it shows up the dark areas much better. The dark it's light in some areas, and then it pools into dark areas.
Have you ever seen your a girl or your wife or someone or your spouse or let me try. Have you ever seen a person cry when they have mascara on and you'll see a streak of the black run through? That's essentially contrast paint.
Yeah.
It's like it's got pixels.
So the
Particles,
middle of the
paint
streak
particles.
is really dark. The outside of it's kind of lighter.
Exactly.
Yeah, but
And so-
their skin is stained, but it's not like they took a line.
And
of
it highlights
mascara
all the
and
cracks and
blended
the edges.
Okay.
That's what contrast paint is great for. It's highlighting, and so it makes it look like you did all this detail work when in fact you just use contrast paint and you put it on pretty quick.
Dry brush.
Dry brush is wonderful, especially for primer. You know, spray your primer on, and then you know, and what I like to do is a zenithal, which is where you spray black with your paintbrush, your airbrush, and then you put a white over the top so it looks down and gives it a shadow. So it's dark down below, but white, like the sun's shining on
So
it.
you prime it dark color,
Uh-huh.
then you spray from the top with white,
Yep.
and then you do your contrast paints.
Yep.
Okay.
You can see the stage.
And then if you want to do any detail work afterward, you can do a little detail work. Exactly. And that's a really fast way to do it. And that's how I painted this bell rock. He went pretty fast. He was huge, and I thought I was going to spend like hours on this. I did not. I probably spent 20 minutes.
Wow.
But
Okay.
Have you used a Harbor Freight airbrush?
I have, and I think it's crap.
Okay.
What do you think? When you tried it?
Freight has airbrush?
They do.
They do.
And it's cheap. And it's a steal for what you're getting. It's just that,
If you're just getting into it, it might be okay.
then it might be okay.
I wouldn't even do it then.
See,
I
I'm with
wouldn't
him.
even do it then.
I wouldn't, because you won't get into it. You'll start getting into it. You're like, this is not working, and I hate this, and then you'll quit.
And you'll get cheaper air compressors other places that'll be higher quality.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I've never tried airbrushing. I've tried, tiny brushes, and I don't have steady enough hands. So it's like steady hands a big deal with
No.
airbrushing.
But I wouldn't even. You could start with spray paint cans. It's just the reason people get an airbrushing and priming is because the spray can is like $4 per can, and you can get an airbrush and primer, and the primer this big will be $17, and it'll last you for 2 years.
Okay.
Whereas a spray can will last
So
you
it's
maybe
cheaper.
like
It's cheaper in the long run. It costs initially it costs a lot to get the nice stuff, but in the long run it's going to save you money, and it's so much easier than going to to the box store to buy a
But don't
spray
start
can.
that way. Start with a
Spray can. See if you like it.
And with bigger stuff, I wouldn't use that either. Like,
I would.
if I was doing your cases for like functional stuff, I would just use a spray can.
That's probably true. It's that big.
Do you need to
Well,
paint
something
to
like that.
protect from UV or
No.
okay?
Not at
No.
all.
Yeah, something like that. I wouldn't even bother painting, but it's
So-
more figurines. You're looking for detail in the paint
Yep,
and
you
to
are.
make it look good. So that's why.
It's not food grade. That is something that I've seen is like
Oh,
people
okay.
want a 3D printed cup.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
what I was
like,
gonna
drink out of
ask,
it?
Is it like
No,
No.
there's
so
no
it's
amount
all
of curing.
toxic?
There's
kind of
no
thing?
amount of curing that
Resin's
you can do.
toxic.
You can coat it, but it would still not be.
You can get FDM that's food, that's safe.
Yeah.
You can get chocolate FDM if you hate yourself.
Yeah, but resin no.
I mean, I
I
suppose
would never
you could,
ever
you could dip
create
it
a
in a
eating
food grade
utensil with
epoxy,
resin,
but
though.
that
That
requires
sounds
it
like
to
a
be 3D
bad
printed.
Like silicone? Like that?
So you know when you go to a hobby store and you're looking at all those kind of paints that you could buy? There's army paints and there's all kinds of paints. Go ahead, spend your money if you want. Or go buy Monument Hobby paints for the same price and it'll look a lot better. Because they put a ton of pigment in it.
Okay.
Okay? They put lots of pigment, it just works. It's actually goes through airbrushes really well. You don't even have to water it down. It just works well. I love Monument paints. Would you agree, Matt?
That you don't have to water it down.
Not much.
I water it down because it lasts longer.
That's true. And because it has so much pigment, you can still do that, and you're not going to lose quality.
Are you watering it down with water? Or are you using?
I use water.
lacquer thinner?
No, just water.
You could get paint thinner.
Because it's acrylic paint, so like you don't really have to be worried terribly about it being in the air that much. You don't really have to worry about it eating it.
It's not going to eat the seals on your paintbrush. Water's great.
But again, this is you're now diving into a separate hobby.
Yes. This is not just 3D printing. This is the post fun.
Out of curiosity, you say you do it semi-professional. Do you compete at SaltCon at all?
I don't. I live in Indiana.
That makes things difficult.
Yeah, but I went to the Golden Demon.
Wait. Have you seen his stuff? Wouldn't you agree, Mike? He could compete and win.
Compete at what?
Well, they have miniature contests.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Probably. I've never really dug into that.
Yeah, if you want to have a reason to come back to Utah, SaltCon I think is up to $2,000 now.
What brings you to Utah this time?
Me.
Family.
Okay, so Monument Hobby paints or Citadel contrast paints are great. You can get other stuff, but whatever. These are the best. And again, if you want a cheap brush, airbrush, that's not, when I say cheap, I mean $90 cheap. It's the Patriot 105.
Didn't you start off with a Chinese model?
I did.
What did you think about it?
It worked like one time, kind of. Yeah, it was crap. It just didn't work. And so I called up Matt, help me out, man. And he told me to go get the Badger 105 Patriot. That's what I did. So that's what I would highly recommend. It works. It's the go-to. And then Matt told me about this one.
I did not tell you have to buy it.
You didn't tell me I had to buy it, but you told me about it. Isn't it beautiful? It's so beautiful. This is a harder. What is it called? Harder and Steinbeck. It's a German-made one. It is a sweet one. I paid $250 for it.
Does the gold embossing make you paint better?
Yes.
Except we've never used it.
I just stare at it. I don't even use it.
It's too intimidating. You said it's 1,500. We've never actually used it, so I actually don't know.
It's if you touch it, it just feels good. It's one of those. It's like a quality. You know you've got quality tools.
That seems like something you mount on the wall and never actually use. You just admire.
You just admire it.
You said it was 1 in 500, right?
Yeah.
It's Squidmar. He made it.
Squidmar made it. Yep.
The compressor.
And do you want to show me your compressor?
Oh, here's a compressor.
I want to say you can use a regular compressor if you want. You just have to have a little bit of adapter so you can hook onto the hose.
Because you're going from big hoses to little hoses.
And have a moisture capture.
Okay.
You can totally do that.
So I have a regular air compressor,
You could.
so I could adapt it.
The
and use
problem
that.
people don't do that is because it's loud. Right?
Yes.
No, but it
Yes.
also triggers less because you supposedly have a bigger volume.
Bigger tank.
Yeah, just unplug your air compressor.
Or just leave the air compressor in the garage and bring a hose that goes all the way in the house.
What?
My wife said no to that.
Yeah, I.
She's like, you're gonna leave the door open? I'm like, yeah, just a crack. But no, so I had to go buy this. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of notes. This is a generic.
He said just shout, don't raise your hand.
Yeah, shout. What?
Is there a way to do this in an apartment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You just plug it in.
Now, are you talking about the 3D printer, or are you talking about
The 3D printer specifically.
Yes.
Still
Okay.
have to find a way.
I would build an enclosure if I. Well, okay, it depends. Do I?
Yes.
Do you have little kids?
That's the
In
number.
the same area? Okay, then
Or
yes.
cats. That's another one.
Or
No
dogs.
Or cats that you care about.
Then what I would do is I would build an enclosure and I'd figure out a way to vent it through the window anytime it's running.
With a bird in enclosure, one of your
In
words.
which case you'll
Just
also need to
instant death.
heat it a little bit, so you need to heat it as well. Because you're having cold air from the outside. But the real answer is I probably wouldn't do this in an apartment. I would probably just buy a printer and be like, I'm gonna put it in the hackerspace and anyone who uses it can.
But
And then
see, I'm a little more less risk averse.
3D printer here.
I-
I'm actually
I-
considering that.
I would put it in an apartment, but that was
Big
just me.
Salt Lake has a bunch of 3D printers, but they're like $75 a month. And you
libraries
have to
have
get-
them.
Yeah,
Lots of libraries have them.
Yeah, you get
Salt Lake
free
Library
a lot of
also
3D.
has
A lot of
3D
libraries have them too.
Yeah, are there any non-FDM ones? I know there are a bunch of FDM ones at like
I've
Marriott,
seen-
City
I've
library
seen
City.
owned by Salt Lake City, not the county, the city,
Yeah.
Mhm.
has resins
up at Sprague Branch.
But the reality is this
Like
thing.
3 of them.
This thing would work pretty well for miniatures. In fact, it's what I used for a long time.
And this one, it might be, we might need to replace the LCD screen. I don't know.
Upstairs,
It's not printing as well as it
back
should.
room.
What's
Mine's
printed
barely
good enough
used.
for one that's hardly
What?
ever used?
Yes.
Mine's barely used, and
So, but
the
it's
thing,
Not
I
main branch.
I have little
Sprague
kids,
branch.
so I have to be very selective about when and how I print.
You
so I don't
do.
really get to
You
use
do.
it very often.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
maybe bringing it here is the better option.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Is it? Do you have to monitor as much, or could you just set up Octoprint?
This doesn't do
It
Octoprint.
doesn't. They lock down the board.
You know the soft.
You could do modifications. You could do modifications to add Octoprint, but
preventative maintenance.
Okay.
Maybe I just bring it here.
I'm listening.
Well, this last slide is,
You were talking about those.
you know, self-explanatory.
recommendation.
Is there any questions? We're coming to an end here, because I want to go.
Frozen.
Hey, wait, what?
What's that?
Frozen.
I thought somebody might read it.
Proprietary. Open source all of it.
Yeah.
Contact corporate. That's amazing. I love the phone number.
Only old people like me would recognize the phone number. 862. Okay, sorry. All right, well.